Hello everybody, how's it going? It's Ben. Welcome aboard the Bonny Rackham for the last deep dive of the finale episode. What a ride it's been, like doing these deep dives this year. I've had such a good time doing them, just going through everything and really just airing all my thoughts, all my brain farts. I've just had a real good time, just really getting into the meat and bones of these great, fantastic episodes, these great, fantastic characters. And yeah, there would have been absolutely no point in me doing this without a lovely little community of people like coming along, joining in here and there with the likes and the comments on Facebook, the Facebook Black Cells group, on YouTube as well. So yeah, before I started, I just wanted to thank you guys, those that have either tuned in for each and every one or picked your favourite episodes. However you've contributed, I appreciate it so much. As I sort of knew when I started, it wasn't going to be a mass kind of crowd of us, but I don't mind that. I always generally prefer a little smaller group where we can kind of focus in a bit more and really get those discussions in, rather than a really intense kind of 1,000 comments, that I just have no way of ever keeping up with. I like it short and sweet, and I like it kind of like that. So yeah, just thank you to anyone that's contributed in any way. And of course, I want to give a special couple of mentions, couple of regulars that just, they usually always check in, always comment, and have some great insights. So yeah, it's Hats and Two Daggers. I know who you are in real life. Obviously, I won't, in case you don't want your name said for YouTube purposes. Obviously, had the pleasure of meeting you early in the year, and that was absolutely brilliant. And we got to, and absolutely fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much for your love and support. It means so much as well. And the same with Rackhamish. But yeah, some absolutely great. I'm not sure if you're in the group. I haven't worked out who you are in the group yet, if you are. But if you are, let yourself be known. Or don't, stay mysterious. But yeah, I've loved your discussions as well. The three of us, we have a big love, I think it's safe to say, for Anne and Jack, and I think some of us go into Max as well. But it's been great chatting with you guys especially. And then recently, Eleonora Parker has loved reading your stuff and joining in your great discussions, and lots more food for thought. So yeah, and there's been other commenters along the way that have posted things here and there. So yeah, just thank you for anyone that's contributed anyway. Yeah, the reason I do this is to kind of get it off my brain, get the brain farts out, say them out loud, and yeah, be with the thought, what, if it kills half an hour, well, a bit more than half an hour, if it kills 40 minutes for someone once every couple of weeks or something, then that's cool, and it's always good to see what other people are thinking about shows you love, whether you agree or don't. And Black Cells is generally a really lovely fandom. Like, I've never had any kind of nastiness or, oh, what an awful take, or anything like that. It's all very, oh, okay, yeah, no, I see it this way sort of thing. It's all lovely, and everybody's really friendly and just really lovely community. So yeah, I love this show. I love the fandom. But yeah, I did want to take a little bit of a longer intro out just to do all that. But yeah, thank you so much. I wouldn't have been able to get this far without it, with no one really contributing or doing anything. It makes it worth it. But yeah, thank you so much. Like I say, I've said before, this isn't the last one necessarily. I do plan a couple of little one-offs, little different sort of projects for Black Cells, but it's going to be a bit of a break for now after this one. But yeah, without further ado, I think that's the longer intro done, and the thank yous off the cuff, so I get them in case anyone doesn't hang around right to the end. But yeah, we've got the same sort of layout as usual. There's a couple of things that I'll extend, and obviously we've got a big discussion about that ambiguous ending, but it will probably stretch a little longer. So yeah, get your snacks, get your drinks, and yeah, let's toast to Black Cells finale. Get us underway, Anne.
Get us underway.
Okay, so yes, as always, it is title time first, and yeah, this was a tough one to title. Yeah, big pressure to call the final episode something kind of epic as I could. I thought about calling it A History of the Pirates, based on the famous book that will pop up in discussion a little bit once more. And yeah, a few other ideas, but the one that ended up sounding most suited to me was Freedom in the Dark. I ultimately wanted a piece from that final speech from Flint, and yeah, it's one of those titles that just really works for me, but to really explain it, I'd really have to take a lot of time out and really go into it. Yeah, and there's already so much to talk about in terms of this episode and things to go through, and that scene is going to get a lot of love and a lot of time, so it will probably answer itself as to why it is a good title. So yeah, if it makes sense at this point, it makes sense, but yeah, it just, Freedom in the Dark, I don't know, it just felt right. Okay, let's get into this and let's get a brief summary and a rating sorted, and then we can look at all the episode ratings.
First item.
So yeah, this one is written by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Robert Levine. Of course, the finale, it was always going to be the original creators, the OGs, in the same way that Jonathan E. Steinberg has taken the director seat himself for the first time for this one. Yeah, he obviously wanted full control of his co-creation, you know, of his baby for the final episode, and who can blame him? And yeah, he does a phenomenal job here. So absolutely, it's been interesting, you know, really interesting looking at these, who wrote it and who directed it, you know, something I didn't really pay attention to too much before this deep dive. And yeah, there has been some just phenomenal talent in these episodes. And yeah, so here we are, the final Black Sails episode, and what a finale it is. With the late arrival of Jack Rackham to Skeleton Island, Woods Rogers and Billy's fates are sealed in tense showdowns all round. Maddie's found safe and sound, much to Silver's relief, but after everything that's happened and a stark reminder of where it all started for him, he has to end Flint's war. To do that, he has to end Flint. How he ends up doing that will vary from viewer to viewer. We'll of course get into all of that a little bit later. And then with a final wrap up from Jack, the final credits roll on my favourite show. Yeah, this is a brilliant finale episode, exciting action scenes to wrap up things on Skeleton Island, one of the best acted scenes in any show ever, with one of the best monologues ever, as Flint and Silver passionately discuss what's next. While I think wrap-ups elsewhere, mainly Jack, Max and Marion's Enterprise, is a little bit rushed and brushed over, considering both Max and Jack didn't exactly come through on their side of the bargains from Marion's perspective, but it's a minor gripe in an otherwise really, really solid finale. So yeah, I am still going to give this an absolute full house 10 out of 10 ranking for this one. So yeah, let's check in now on my final rankings, which yeah, I have been pretty much just pulling from thin air really, just what felt right. I think I might have set that scale quite high early in season 2, so maybe everything is probably 0.2 or 3 higher than most would, and maybe, you know, that probably should be, but I am more than happy to overhype these episodes. So yeah, 38 episodes to rank. So these are the ones, the 18 that didn't quite make it into the top 20. Yeah, look at these numbers. This just shows how much I love this show, how much I rate this show, that the lowest, 3 lowest, are 7.6 still. That's still really bloody good. So yeah, as expected, season 1, unfortunately, just missing out on that top 20. Shifting Sands coming so close with an 8.9 right at the top there. So yeah, all of season 1 does end up in this sort of second half. And then there's 6 episodes from season 2 that don't make it into the top 20. But that still means 4 great episodes make it into there already in season 2. And then 2 episodes apiece from season 3 and 4 just missing out on a top 20, meaning that top 20 is very heavy with them. But yeah, obviously if you want to have a proper good look, have a little pause. Obviously I've put all the titles as well, so you can sort of remind yourself what I called everything. So yeah, let's get into that top 20 and see how it looks. So yeah, it's quite a lot. It's quite intimidating to look at straight off the cuff like that. You might want to pause. So I've kind of done it. You go from the bottom up to get to, you know, top 20 up. The top 6 dominated by season 2, 3 and 4 penultimate and finale episodes. I think Black Spot and Avalanche, I think they're about right for me. I could switch them on another day, but I'm quite content with that. And yeah, interesting maybe for some, I've put the penultimate season 4 episode just a nudge ahead. I mean, they're all 10, so it's pretty much irrelevant anyway. But I do nudge it in enjoyment factor that little bit further ahead. And then Voice of Reason, which I thought was another great penultimate episode. And then there's TikTok as well from season 2's penultimate episode. And then the first episode outside of that kind of penultimate or finale is Live With It from the most recent season. Then we got mid-season No Shame from 2.5, obviously crucial in Flint's story and learning so much about him. Villains, which I absolutely love. I think that's a brilliant episode. Just absolutely every scene in that is just phenomenal. Obviously, Anne episodes are always going to rank a little bit higher with me. Then, yeah, you got Killhorde, and you got, yeah, just some great episodes. I mean, you know, I don't need to tell you what they're all about. Eye of the Storm. I think Adrift from 2.6, again, another great Anne episode. I think I've probably got that maybe a little higher than anyone else that isn't an Anne fan. I love that episode. Such a phenomenal episode. I mean, obviously, everyone's would be pretty different. I think the finales probably make it into most people's kind of top. Let me know what some of your favourites are. What would you switch around here? But yeah, outstanding show. Outstanding episodes, outstanding quality of direction, acting and TV. Okay, so yeah, let's now get into that deep dive.
Next item.
Alright, let's get started. And so yeah, we have a cold open and we are introduced to a new location. Okay, yeah, so there's no way for me to chat honestly, you know, like I usually do, about my thoughts on this great finale without bringing up the big discussion kind of briefly early here. I have said it before, but just to clarify, I am of the opinion that Silver kills Flint. Now, I will go into depth, you know, a bit later with this and my sort of reasonings, you know, when we really get into it, and I'll take some time out for it. So yeah, I personally question if this scene actually really played out at all, and isn't us, the audience, sort of also being fed, you know, early a little bit of this elaborate, yet still sort of believable tale. So yeah, to go through a little bit what we see, I'm going to come back to the camp itself in the relevant discussion again. But yeah, you know, even as we're first kind of in the beginning taken through these gates, it's very picturesque. It's almost too good to be true picturesque. It's almost like those gates and the path leading to the mansion are sort of too over CGI'd. It's really hard to describe what I'm trying to say. They just don't look like Black Cells has done like CGI before, you know, they've like where they've made towns and obviously repurposed it for another scene, you know, another season. They've reused places and you can tell, but it still looks real, if that makes sense. This doesn't look real. This looks like green screen. It looks too deliberately kind of green screen, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll come back to that a little bit later. And yeah, inside, one of Silver's men, Tom Morgan, who I believe first appeared earlier in the season, kind of after they had just taken Nassau, and there he is shown to be very much Silver's man. And yeah, Tom Morgan is also a Treasure Island character. Yeah, so we've seen him, but we don't really know him. And so here, he and we are being teased and very dramatically reeled in on what's happening by this very larger-than-life, eccentric governor, I guess we call him, guess he's a governor. And yeah, and sure, Black Cells has done interesting one-off, sort of short-lived characters before, but this is, I don't know, for a man essentially supposed to be in charge of a working man's prison, it's a lot, and it feels like a character like right off a page. I know they're all characters off a page, but yeah, just something doesn't quite ring true to me. Something doesn't feel right with this guy. Perhaps Morgan actually did really go to check, perhaps he didn't. I'll put a pin in the reliability of this scene for now. And yeah, while this guy has some interesting things to say, he's clearly dancing around the answer Morgan is waiting for. Again, you know, for a man who's probably very busy, who could give him a very simple yes or no here, it's just very performative, very kind of over the top. It's very story-like. And yeah, so Tom Morgan, a bit frustrated, name drops who he's here on behalf of, and that quietens this guy. He's heard of Long John Silver. He's a governor of a pretty secure prison camp in Savannah. Going to have much care for Long John Silver, regardless if he knows his name and the stories or not? I don't know. But yeah, Tom Morgan asks, is he here or not? You know, he wants to know. And of course, if we hadn't clicked before then, we realise that he's meaning Thomas and all this stuff is coming back again from earlier in the season. We get no answer. And yeah, I have my thoughts on that too. But yeah, I'll come back to all that sort of later. Okay, so yeah, on to Skeleton Island and picking up right where we left off with the death and destruction. Billy taking out all his former crew still. Silver and Flint immediately are trying to help anyone they can while the shots are firing in. And yet Flint looks like he's managed to save someone, but who is watching intently, ready to snipe? It's Billy. He fires not at Flint, but at the man Flint is trying to save. And yeah, while Woods Rogers has ordered he wants Flint left alive, but no quarter for anyone else, which I will come back to in contrast to what Jack and our guys do when they win the day. Utter darkness for both Billy and Woods Rogers. Really nothing new to say with them. No redemption for them now. You know, maybe Billy has heard the order and is obeying Woods Rogers here, but then we do have that fight in a bit, very clearly to the death. So I think he just wanted to take out that guy to spite Flint, to show him where he stands, and as a sort of I'll deal with you later sort of warning. So yeah, a whistle is sounded from the lookout guy, which momentarily distracts Woods Rogers, which gives our guys a chance to flee, a chance to regroup. And yeah, I think a couple of Walrus men do survive that ordeal, but yeah, the majority, as we saw last episode, are dead. They really are, you know, their numbers are depleted right now. So yeah, what has been spotted by the lookout for Woods Rogers? It's a ship. It's Jack. It's Jack and Featherstone to the rescue. Yeah, on first watch at this point, we wonder, what does that mean? What does this mean for Jack? But for now, Jack, he's wanting to take on survivors, including Flint and Silver. Yeah, as they're boarding, Featherstone questions this, you know, in his usual light-hearted manner. While he thinks it's good luck that they've stumbled upon Flint and co. in a weakened state like this, he can sense Jack is thinking a bit differently on things and on what should be their next move. Jack's not in a hurry to bundle Flint in a sack and be done with it right in the moment, though. It's not logical in the moment. It really isn't. So Flint regroups with Jack a bit, gathers the troops, and yeah, Flint acting very much like nothing's happened or clearly changed, like he hasn't just gone sword to sword with Silver and Hands. So yeah, he confesses to Jack he knows where the cache is. And yeah, so Flint says once Woods Rogers is defeated and Maddie is safe, he will reveal where the chest is and they will all go retrieve it together. And while it's frosty, they all sort of agree right now that defeating Woods Rogers is the priority. So yeah, Flint wants to talk to Jack and Silver alone and they start to go to head down to the cabin. Silver, he hasn't said a word during all of this scene. And yeah, Jack immediately kind of notices the tension, which ends up working great towards his end goal. So yeah, as he's sort of following them down, Featherstone takes him aside. Again, sort of wandering to Jack, you know, what their play is. And Jack makes it clear, you know, that taking down Woods Rogers is his priority. He wants to look Woods Rogers in the face so he knows it was him and that he brought him down. He knows the best way of doing that is using the combined forces of Flint and Silver as well, helping them rescue Maddie. And yeah, it's logical from Jack, it really is. They fare much better odds as a team, especially now he knows that Flint's the only one that knows where the cache is. So yeah, it's in his interest, reluctant as it may be. He kind of has to play along. It would be very foolish to try and take them on here at this point. So yeah, inside the cabin now, Silver just still quiet, deep in thought. So yeah, and Jack is due a grilling, and a bit of a grilling he gets. Flint is on him straight away. Where did you go? You know, and yeah, Jack tells the truth up until Joseph Guthrie denying his proposal, and then he sort of conveniently stops the story. But he makes no mention of Marion and anything further than that. And knowing, I think that, yeah, he's being quite vague and leaving him open to more questioning, Jack sort of quickly changes the subject and asks what's next. More pressing issues, basically. And Flint, I guess, with the same thought as Jack in, this isn't ideal, but the three of us is better than two. I can deal with what's after. The afters for Flint now. Yeah, they're piling up to unrealistic levels, aren't they? They really are. But yeah, Flints basically says, yeah, so this is my ship now. Battles is what I do. This is how we're going to play it, sort of thing. And yeah, and he reaffirms that Maddie is his priority. And up until this point, Silver has been brooding. He's been thinking, struggling maybe with the play we know he's ultimately going to make. Whether it's been a long game like he makes it seem later when he's talking to Maddie, or as I tend to lean more towards, he's putting pieces, chapters, if you will, together in his head already to construct a concise kind of narrative, especially as this is another powerful motivational speech from Flint. Winning here today changes everything, and it's most likely to happen under my direction, Flint says. And when Jack asks Silver what he thinks, he says Flint's plan is right. Again, Jack can sense the tension. But yeah, pretty much sick of all of it now already. And yeah, you know, in losing his captaincy in this moment without any choice, he just leaves with a, you people. But yeah, as I say, if Woodes Rogers is to be his priority, he's got to hand those captaincy reins over for now. So yeah, once Jack leaves, Flint starts chatting to Silver. And yeah, again, almost like last episode events haven't happened. He's trying to carry on as normal. He questions Jack's loyalty, knows something's not adding up in his story, but Silver is kind of very quick with a, what are you doing? You really think this is repairable? To which Flint still thinks it is. So yeah, so Flint, this is interesting, this little moment, because Flint, I guess he kind of contradicts himself a bit here. You know, says he understands what Silver's going through, losing her, then seeing a way to have her back. And he refers to the conversation they had back in 4-5, I want to say, where Silver finds out about the camp. Flint didn't want to know in the moment back then. And back then, the tension wasn't as high as it is here either. You know, he had time back then to ask questions, but nothing. He wanted none of it. But, you know, here he's sort of saying he doesn't know what he would have done if he found out Thomas was alive. Maybe the same thing Silver did. It sounds very honest and from the heart, but it is a little bit of a shift, like I say, from their first conversation about it. So yeah, this is one of those great kind of ambiguous scenes, I think, that can work well for either side you lean towards in the Flint's conclusion, kind of. I think Flint bringing that conversation up again possibly gives Silver the thought, oh yeah, shit, I hadn't thought about that Thomas thing in a while. I'm going to bear that in mind. But it also hints at a chance that Flint would stop all of it for a small chance of reuniting with Thomas, which for me really does contradict with that scene already mentioned and the final passionate speech we're about to get. I think ultimately, while he is being truthful here, and you know, later when it's just far too late, but yeah, I think in bringing that up here, he's keeping it personal with Silver right now, still trying to talk him down a bit. Yeah, because their reasons are so similar in terms of the rage felt at loss of people they love, or suspected loss in Silver's case. But yeah, the end game when the mist clears is really what separates them now. So yeah, let's leave these to a moment, as next we're back with Billy on his bullshit. And he goes to find Maddie, obviously on Woodes Rogers' ship. And yeah, poor Maddie, she has really been through it the second half this season. I feel bad for Maddie because she doesn't get a very satisfying ending at all. So yeah, on first watch, you know, this is really intense. Not sure how this is going to play out at all. You know, Billy puts a knife to her throat and he sort of starts woe is me monologuing. I don't know if this speech is doing anything emotionally for anyone. It's not me. Yeah, he knows he's done an awful thing, but he's only really sorry for himself. To be fair, he does finally admit it's always been about Flint. He knows he's done dark things to pursue it. And yeah, that haunted, paranoid Billy Bones from the book, ready to fully take over now from the Billy we once knew. He points out they're all enemies now, and he believes they're all going to be dead come the end of this battle. But if Silver and Flint do prevail, he will ensure there is still defeat awaiting them. And yeah, Tom Hopper is absolutely killing this monologue. He played such a great turn this season. And yeah, and this response, while brave, true and badass, is just so lose-lose for Maddie. While she's absolutely right in what she says, if Billy kills her, it will be far from defeat. It would give people, Flint and Silver, a martyr to unite and make stronger, to spur the war on. We know that's true. You know, we know if he did find her dead, he'd become just as passionate to continue as Flint is, though still, ultimately, you know, I think for very different reasons, just purely by that rage. But yeah, it's lose-lose for Maddie. You know, she was either going to die here in this moment, or in Billy now leaving her alive, Silver takes the actions he does and the war is extinguished. But yeah, it's left in the air on what's exactly happened on that first watch. So yeah, seemingly appearing after that chat like it's business as usual now, Silver joins Flint on deck. And yeah, they're talking very amicably, like I say, like it's normal. And they know Woodes Rogers is close and he's ready to make his play. But yeah, Silver, in his mind, he's plotting, he's planning, and he's going to go and get a true answer out of Jack, which I think Flint notices. We know he doesn't trust Jack in this moment, Flint doesn't. And yeah, Silver, he hasn't hung around with him long here with Flint, and I think Flint notices that. And Silver, you know, who I think knows Jack also isn't so big on the war as a priority. And yeah, he knows that Jack's left some stuff out of his story. So yeah, after he updates him on what they think Woodes Rogers is up to, he asks him quietly, you know, what the fuck he's actually doing here. And yeah, it's a complete tone change in Silver. Again, he knows something is missing from Jack's story. And yeah, he says his questions only multiply, which is probably not a state you want to leave me in. Very Long John Silver-like here. But of course, Jack has known him from the beginning also, like Flint. And yeah, Jack says he has multiplying questions also. He knows something's going on between him and Flint. Tension or something else in the air between steadfast partners. Jack says, we could suffer under the weight of our respective questions, or would you like to start trading answers? So yeah, I think they've both kind of worked out from each other here. Flint is the problem. An issue for both of them to eventually deal with. Neither sure exactly the whys and the wherefores, but I think somehow they know both their end games kind of don't really affect the others. The only thing that can upset their separate plans is Flint. So yeah, they're sort of unspoken allies in this moment, I think. And it's Jack that pretty much voices that here. So yeah, our first real scene with these two kind of speaking alone through the whole show. They've interacted a couple of times, but there's always been at least a third person present. But yeah, anyway, yeah, great little moment that, great little scene. And so yeah, on to the last great action sequence of the show. You know, a ship battle and boarding, big final showdown. So yeah, we take a few seconds to really focus in on Flint, really deep in thought. As I say, those suspicions on Silver's plans moving forward, kind of after the rescue, they're really starting to settle in now. He knows something is up. And yeah, so Woodes Rogers' ship is spotted behind a cliff, sort of waiting to ambush. And yeah, like Billy, absolutely no logic left now for Woodes Rogers outside of blind fury. And yeah, the tension and nail-biting action, it's done so well here. When heading for a straight-on collision, you know, his men sort of question, what we doing? You know, there's easier ways to kind of board. And Woodes Rogers sort of says with passionate spite, he wishes to cause confusion and terror amongst Flint's men. He's just ready to risk it all and just charge, you know, straight into them to shatter their spirits, to break them, and then hear board. Bearing in mind, they're all just off an island in the middle of nowhere, you know, so instead of strategic planning, he just wants to snap their ship in two. It's almost kamikaze-like, like it's really dangerous for him as well. Just nothing beyond death and destruction in his mind now. And so yeah, our guys, they brace for the impact. And yeah, Woodes Rogers' ship comes just crashing in. And that groan of ships almost protesting themselves. It's just so well done. There's no music here in this moment. All just terrifying sounds of wood and things, you know, all just crashing and splintering. And yeah, and so with the masts and the sails tangled and the redcoat snipers inside, Flint just gets to work immediately. Again, Flint at his finest, doing what he does best. No prompts, no confusion, as Woodes Rogers was hoping. Just straight to action where he knows he needs to be. So he tells Silver to go find Maddie, and he's going to go and turn this thing around. And yeah, Billy is ordered by Woodes Rogers to join the muskets up on the foremasts. And yeah, he sees Flint climbing towards him. And yeah, so he has his opportunity now. I don't even know if Woodes Rogers cares about his leave Flint alive order anymore at this point. I doubt it. I think after Jack evened the odds. But yeah, Billy certainly has no plans to heed it anyway now, even if it still was, you know, a given command. End of the line stuff for everyone here. And so yeah, Flint's trying to kind of untangle everything. he's deep in concentration as Billy takes a shot. And yeah, while Billy is distracted with Flint, some crew from our guys are able to take out some snipers, and so the boarding begins, except it's Team Pirate kind of doing the boarding. As usual, just great action going on all around. Finally, high up on the masts, Billy and Flint are finally about to have it out. Billy throws off an old crewmate from up high. Not unlike a final fall he's about to have himself very soon. Yeah, this is such a brilliant battle of survival with so much history behind it between them both. While Anne versus Milton is my favourite fight in the whole show, I think this might be my second. Just nail biting every watch, despite obviously now knowing what's going to happen. There's guns, fists, steel, sails ripped while they're both in the middle of it. Just absolute madness. It's so well done. And yeah, hanging on to Flint and the mast, knowing he's going into the water one way or the other again. Billy is just manically trying to drag Flint into the depths with him rather than climb the rope, to save himself. Kind of echoing the choice Woodes Rogers just made. Hatred over logic, and yeah, it costs them both. And yeah, Flint just about able to shake him off eventually, and Billy just falls into the waters below. Makes my stomach drop every time. No doubt on whether Flint pushed him this time, but yeah, very different circumstances. And yeah, plus for anyone that remembers those discussions, I don't think Flint pushed him back in season 1. So yeah, our guys are taking the upper hand on the boarding. Good action from Hans and Silver, taking out some reds. And yeah, once the coast is clear, Silver heads below. This is sort of spliced back and forth with the action, but I'll quickly go over Silver's kind of moment here in one piece. So yeah, below deck, it's eerily quiet. Silver is searching and he comes across a man hiding kind of cowardly out of sight. He says, "What are you doing down here? Are you a fucking coward?" And the guy sort of goes, "Please sir, I'm just the cook." And yeah, so much history behind that statement for Silver. So much to come from it in Treasure Island. While Silver wasn't a snivelly sort of coward as this guy sort of seems to be, he was always a bit more sly and sneaky with it. The parallels are clearly not lost on him or us, the audience, just on how different his life is now since that boarding in the first episode. But yeah, what a journey, we've just been on with just Silver alone. It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, he asks after Maddie, and the cook sort of shows him where she is, and there is a big build-up as he enters. We're not sure if she's alive or if she's dead, but finally Maddie looks up, and Silver, relieved, he just embraces her and he holds her close. And I'm going to gloss over Maddie's reaction for the moment. So yeah, meanwhile, out on deck, what's been going out on there? Pretty even odds now, like I say, they've really turned it around, Walrus Crew, or whatever they are now. And yeah, it's emotional, as Jack sort of spots Woodes Rogers and he just makes a beeline for him. And yeah, they go at it. I always wonder if Woodes Rogers is surprised to see Jack alive. Perhaps word of mouth got to him before this point, but I don't know when there would have been time between everything that's happened. It's all gone so quick. I think this might be, in seeing Jack, I think it might be a bit of a shock to him, which just makes it all the sweeter if it is. Such a great moment for Jack though. Woodes Rogers killed Teach in cold blood and nearly died because of Woodes Rogers' kind of indirect actions. I don't know if one-on-one Jack would have bested him. I think passion still would have come through for Jack maybe. But yeah, once Flint joins the fight, it's game over. It's game over for Woodes Rogers. So yeah, they all go at it for a little bit, but yeah, he's disarmed and he just sees he's lost the ship. And yeah, that is finally the end of that. And yeah, great emotional music while this is all going down. It's not, high octane kind of fuck yeah sort of fighting music. It's slow, reflective, really emotional sort of soundtrack. So yeah, we see Maddie come outside to see the victory. And yeah, redcoats are being tied up, not killed. But yeah, remember the man of civilization wanted no quarter, kill absolutely everyone. But the man leading the pirates, not so inclined. Which, yeah, as so much as we've seen throughout this show in terms of civilization being quite hypocritical at times, this will all tie in so well with this monologue to come. And yeah, after all she's been through, Maddie sort of looks around and she sees a victory. And she and Flint look to each other and she just smiles with so much relief. The possibilities for what could be now. And yeah, while she was most likely in a kind of stress kind of days, it is still unmissable for us and for Silver, who we focus in on, not to see the difference in her reactions. It wasn't reuniting with Silver that got that big smile of relief. It was seeing Flint victorious at the head of a ship, big battle in their F1. And yeah, I hate that Silver is going to take this away from her. I really do. But I can't help but feel a little bit sad for him as well. And yeah, so bound now and on the deck on his knees was Rogers. Jack leans down low to him, and yeah, I pointed out this moment on the Keelhauled episode. You know how Jack would mirror this Woodes Rogers power pose in the finale. And yeah, again, I love this for Jack. After everything, he gets to be the one that said, I got ya. I got ya. And yeah, when Woodes Rogers kind of gives him his attention, Jack, knowing their minds are in the same place, I think, because of course Woodes Rogers would think Jack would just repay him kind for kind, because that's what he'd do. But Jack reassures, while it had crossed his mind, no one is going under the ship today. He's got a much better punishment in mind, which I'll come back to in a little bit. So yeah, next on the ship, Flint updating them all, kind of what's next, who's going where, but something's off, and yeah, he catches it when Jack sort of challenges him about the chest. He disagrees, Jack this is, and doesn't take his order to kind of go ahead with the others to the island, and more importantly, Silver doesn't challenge it. In fact, he makes a suggestion to kind of facilitate it. And that's what fully alerts Flint. I think that's the moment that's like, yeah, I'm for it. He knows Silver's done with all of it, with the war. And yeah, if he takes him to the chest, his war ends one way or the other. So yeah, we have a rowboat, Flint, Silver, Hands, Ben Gunn, and Tom Morgan. All Treasure Island characters. And yeah, you cannot miss the shovels. That could be taken either way, their meaning. So yeah, they're rowing and Silver is just staring intently at Flint. Just so intently. And yeah, Flint looks back. They both know this is the end of the road for them, one way or the other. They're just maybe not sure what the other's reaction will be. They both want to at least have one more try, I think. So yeah, they make it to a clearing and Flint sort of says, let's rest. Despite Silver insisting he's fine, he can keep going. But Flint is adamant. And so yeah, they go to talk alone. And so obviously, scene of the episode, scene of the show, maybe. Yeah, I really don't know if I'm going to be able to do this one justice. I feel this whole scene could just be a 45-minute episode just on its own. It's 4 seasons of immense character work for these two characters coming to a final head. It's black sails becoming Treasure Island. It's passionate cases made from both parties. The old king trying to reason with the new one more time. It's phenomenal dialogue that moves you, that just evokes so much thought and passion. Perhaps for some like myself, not just in the sake of the show and these characters, it may mean something different to everyone that watches, but its power is just undeniable. So yeah, let's go through it. So yeah, once away from the rest of the group, Flint stops walking and says he won't be going any further. He knows once he reveals where that cash is buried, it's not going to be used the way he intends. He knows he's lost Silver. After he makes that point, Silver confirms his suspicions. He's done with this war, your war, her war. Again, as he did last episode, not his war, going out of his way to make that very clear. As long as you both believe it, nothing will stop it. Nothing but you, Flint snaps back. I've brought it up before, last episode even, how difficult this is for a viewer. I mean, maybe not for all, but, while I don't care for Silver's actions at all, especially in terms of Maddie, a big part of me still understands where Silver is coming from. As he points out, this is what it would be. Endlessly measures of love, life. That isn't a war, that's a fucking nightmare. Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. That is war in a nutshell, isn't it? But then, of course, now with Woodes Rogers defeated, they could have Nassau again. With the cash, would Flint do better with it than Jack did? But if he did, for how long? there's always a big chance there would always be another big battle around the corner, more death and destruction. So yeah, I don't disagree with Silver, but why does he get to be the one to decide that, you know? Why does he get to be the one to make that call after everything? You know, have Flint and Maddie not earned the right to at least try themselves? It's so conflicting. It's so conflicting. Silver says he can't leave this forest until he knows it's over, and then he removes his pistol. At some point, Flint has been unarmed. Another reason I think he'll know that this is heading to where it's heading. And so Flint just gives one of the best monologues ever. As soon as he starts talking and the music starts building, I'm just gone every time. Toby Stephens acting. Yeah, I hope you don't mind me reading it with a little bit of paraphrasing, but it's too good. This is how they survive. You're too smart not to know this. They paint the world full of shadows and tell their children to stay close to the light. Their reasons, their judgments. Because in the darkness there be dragons. But it isn't true. We can prove it isn't true. In the dark there is discovery. There is possibility. There is freedom in the dark once someone has illuminated it. And who has been so close to doing it as we are? Oh God, oh Flint, you know, the passion of this man. If only he'd shown Silver, you know, it was more than revenge, more than pure rage sooner than now. Would we be here? I don't know, probably, but maybe not. He's just left it so late to make his most passionate plea and understanding of his thinking of why he's been fighting for so long. I really don't know how to sum that first part up. We've seen it play out with Woodes Rogers the last couple of seasons, insisting the pirates are the villains, the monsters, here to upset the balance of civilization. To me, Flint's saying, we're so close to changing that narrative. We can be the ones to tell them what is going on. And yeah, as to what this speech means to me, outside of the show, I think ultimately it's just, I don't know, it's probably too personal to get into or too complicated. I think a short summary to try and get along my kind of wavelength. I think it's played a big influence, like, on my life and on my way of thinking, in my critical thinking. The person with power, with wealth and a pen or a voice that talks a good game, they control the narrative, but that doesn't necessarily make it so. Everyone has a voice if they wish to use it against injustice, to fight for what's right. I can connect it with Vane's final stand and talking about shepherds and sheep as well a bit. But yeah, safe to say, it is one of those that is very inspirational to me. But like I say, I can't really do it justice with words. It's very hard to explain exactly what it means. But yeah, let's continue on with this scene. So yeah, at this point, Silver cuts his speech short, says it's not about the war, it's not about England. When he thought Maddie was gone, he saw the world through Flint's eyes, a world where there was nothing left to lose. He wanted to put meaning to the loss, to honour her memory with battles, which is obviously confirming what Maddie said earlier to Billy. But beneath it all, Silver recognised it was rage, and he just wanted to see the world burn. Again, had Flint made this passionate speech earlier, Silver might have taken more from it, understood it's become more than that now from Flint, and give him a little bit more time here, but he's just not ready to anymore. He's just summing it all up to rage for Flint, and we know that's always been a huge part of it for him. It was reignited after Miranda's murder for sure, but I at least have always believed it to be a little bit more than that, more than just the rage. Rage only fuels you so far. There's got to be some belief and passion in there somewhere. There just has to be, which has truly been clarified here. Yeah, Silver says he sees a life with Maddie, but he will not see the day that Flint's nightmare finally takes her away for good. Just, yeah, really so similar to Woodes Rogers here. Another man that convinced himself he was looking out for his woman's best interest. At least with Woodes Rogers, to be fair to him, it was based on misunderstanding to start. I still don't let him off. But here, you know, Silver knows Maddie's passions. He's stated it. But still, he's going to give her no choice in the matter. No agency. He's going to lie and he's going to deceive her. Silver might have finally become the villain himself. He really might have. So Flint asks, what's next? What decisions have you made about what our tomorrows will be? And so yeah, Silver drops the bomb. He's already made arrangements to stop any rebellion. Flint was never going to talk him round in the moment, and Flint is just gutted. Again, while he's already put plans in motion prior to this talk, I don't personally think it's been quite a long game as he makes it seem. I guess that's me hoping, maybe wanting to believe he didn't betray Flint from quite so far back. So yeah, so Flint, he concludes his speech. All this would have been for nothing. We would have been for nothing. Yeah, Gates, Miranda, Vane, Eleanor, Teach, all of it. All of it. Silver's just shit on it. Yeah, Flint continues, defined by their histories, distorted to fit into their narrative, until all that is left of us is the monsters in the stories they tell their children. Again, I come back to that woman who gleefully spoke to Jack, not wanting to hear what the man who was actually there had to say. The story is just far more interesting to her. But yeah, to that passionate speech about truth, Silver just says, I don't care. To which Flint says, someday you will, someday. Even if you can persuade her to keep you, she'll no longer be enough. The comfort will grow stale, casting about in the dark to find some proof you matter. Finding none, you'll know. Damn, he already does. That's the tragic thing, I think Silver, he already knows. And of course, come Treasure Island, what's he after? Flint's treasure. He's after adventure. He's bored of remembering it all like a painting on the wall. And as Flint inches a bit closer, Silver aims the pistol, says it's not what he wanted. Do we all remember what Flint said to Gates in that 8th episode of Season 1, in that finale? Do we remember? Yep, that's exactly what he said. Same thing. Seemingly no other option for Flint in that moment with Gates. Same here, seemingly for Silver. Silver says he will stand with him for an hour, a day, a year, while you find a way to accept this outcome. Says if not, then he must end this another way. We get a shot of Flint not looking at all to me like a man about to step down, looking more like a man about to charge, and we get an interesting short little cutscene of Ben Gunn, Hans and Morgan turning to face something suddenly, and noisy birds suddenly go very quiet and scatter. We'll come back to that in a bit, but I'm going to keep the rundown going before we go into all that. So quickly, I'm going to give an MVP nominations to both Flint and Silver. Flint for just not giving up, not falling to despair after seeing his ship explode in front of him, his men being culled, for doing his best to hold everything together, for fighting to the end, for just trying to keep faith in Silver, just for this passionate monologue. And John Silver, who, like it or not, however he ultimately did it, for taking down the giant, for taking down Flint. Okay, so then we cut to a lovely little reunion with Jack and Anne in the square. So glad we get this little moment, even if it's just short. But yeah, Anne just looking so much better. Some time's passed and she's obviously made some good recovery. Really emotional. They really didn't think they'd see each other again, I'm sure of it. And yeah, I think Max is relieved to see Jack alive as well, not just because of business. As I spoke about in episode 8, I think they get that balance just between the three of them so much better the second time around, I think. Max and Jack, accepting they have to share the spoils in life and business, and Anne just getting the balance much better between them both, I think. So yeah, in Marion's now. So Jack gives Marion the update, and yeah, it's good to see her again. She's not got much to say, but she's still very much the power in the room. She's doing her embroidery, all nonchalant, but she's taking in everything. So yeah, Jack has his vague explanation of events, which is infuriating on first watch. It really is. Captain Flint is gone, he says. At this point in the background, someone snubs out a candle. Make of that what you will. And Jack says, Flint was persuaded. Everyone was getting a little bit tired of it all, and he kind of chose to walk away. No more a concern. And Marion points out that this seems less definitive than she intended. Yeah, we noticed that too. But Jack points out, but far more effective. And yeah, a little bit of breaking the fourth wall here maybe. Jack says, instead of a martyr, we have fed it a story. A tragedy that diffused their, meaning the Maroons and the rebellion, fighting spirit. which, yeah, is perfect for them three, and it was perfect for Silver. Obviously, regardless of Flint's fate, this was definitely a mutual agreement with Silver and Jack. I don't think Jack knows the truth of Flint's fate. I don't think he knows at all. He's happy to kind of just accept it's over. And yeah, they've kind of kept that. You have your reasons, I have mine. You know, you have your plans, I have mine. Let's just work out how we keep our respective allies happy. I'm not sure how satisfied I am at how easy Jack and Marion are taking the no cash situation. Jack especially. At this time it works for Silver not to have it. Gives Maddie and the Maroons no chance to continue. But I think it's accepted a little bit easy and a little bit plot conveniently from this side. But, you know, it's minor, it's minor. And yeah, as Jack's narrating, we see Silver approach the camp, and Maddie's smile soon turns sour when she sees Flint isn't there with him, nor is said cash. And yes, Silver, he'd sent her ahead, and she trusted him, just making this all so much harder. God, you know, did he plan it longer? It is just so hard to know with this man. It's so hard to know. And so yeah, Jack hands Marion the proposal of a more moderate solution. A treaty made by Woodes Rogers, agreed to by the Maroon leaders. Yeah, man, Silver he did Maddie so dirty. It just makes me so angry. You know, remember how awful that thing was, that treaty, and how she wanted absolutely none of it. He tried twice. Yeah, I really, really dislike Silver for this. And yeah, we see Silver proposing it to Julius and the camp, and Maddie just walking away furious. Julius, of course, now has his I told you so, and his suspicions about Pirate's loyalty confirmed in his mind. So yeah, we come back to Jack. He says to Marion, and to sort of us, he can tell you whatever you want to hear about Flint's whereabouts. He's dead. He was tired. The truth of it all matters not at all. Yeah, you know, in terms of the great fitting ending, I do agree with you, Jack, but my need to know factor, I think I've got to strongly disagree. But yeah, he says all that remains is to sort of purchase Woodes Rogers' debts, force his incarceration, and see him replaced with a new governor who will honour these terms. And yeah, out of focus, the camera, it just pans around to Max finally, and we focus in. And yeah, so she gives the summary. You know, she can't give Marion proof of Flint's removal as she wanted. She can't give her a marriage to a governor of her choosing. But she says she's given her a candidate whose trustworthiness she can guarantee. And yeah, confused, Jack kind of mouths, what candidate? Yeah, it's a perfect candidate, Jack. It's a perfect candidate. But yeah, Max sort of shrugs Jack off in the moment. She's in her flow. And Max says these terms are the best they can offer. Are they acceptable? Marion doesn't answer, but finally looks to her and smiles. She's done it. Max has done it. Back running Nassau on her queenish. Yeah, but now with a much better understanding of what she got wrong the first time round. Relationships mended. But yeah, Jack, being Jack, has to get the last word. Just one more thing. Yeah, another great callback. Remember the hilarious but chaotic meeting with Vane and Flint right back in episode 3. The quartermasters just trying to keep them both in line, and Jack does his just one more thing kind of line, and then Gates hilariously responds, don't push your luck. Yeah, which is very much Max's sentiment here in her hilarious little eye roll at Jack, like, please don't blow this now, please. But no, Jack has got a good point to make. So yeah, just small favour to ask before the ink dries on whatever you've agreed upon. He knows what will be true defeat to Woodes Rogers is him not being able to control his own narrative. The failure, the humiliation for a man like Woodes Rogers. Jack knows how difficult that will be for him to sit helpless while hearing them read out. An unflattering end to what was such a promising story. I suppose what I'm asking, once the time comes to submit those affidavits, I'd so love to help you write it. I love this win for Jack. It's so true to his character. Yeah, great result for Jack here. I'm so happy we didn't have to see his real life fate in the show. But we'll come back to my faves and a new addition to the team in a bit for a kind of epilogue kind of scene. So we get that Silver and Maddie scene now. And yeah, I've already actually ended up covering a lot of my thoughts in terms of how I feel for Maddie here, how I feel her anger, frustrated with Silver. You know, she's furious. She doesn't want him anywhere near her. The pirates and the other islanders, you know, they're all due to leave. The war is over, she says with so much emotion. She knows it's all his doing, knows he sent her away so she couldn't see it, involving Julius so she could not oppose it. He orchestrated the whole thing. She says, don't insult me by denying it. Silver repeats what he said to Flint, but more delicately. War only had one result, loss after loss, he had to stop it, and he's not sorry for it. Says he lost her once, he wouldn't do it again. I think, like Flint, she can understand where he's coming from, and she seems to soften a little when he says this. I've said it before, you know, she loves him, but falling in love is not what she came to do. It was always a happy bonus that's just ended up being a bit of a curse for her. And yeah, so he gives her the story. Yeah, he denies he killed Flint when she challenges him on it. I unmade him. And yeah, and so we get to his story of reuniting Flint with Thomas, which I'm going to come back to in relation to my thoughts on its ambiguity. Yeah, Silver says he found a place to return him to his past, a past state of being. And Maddie says Flint would have fought to the death. And yeah, I got to agree with you there. I've got to agree with you there, Maddie. Silver says he told him about Thomas being at this camp and that Flint fought at first, but his resolve wavered the closer they got. So yeah, one either believes this emotional retelling is true or that Silver is telling his best story ever here. Because I think it's the latter, I'm sort of really whizzing over the bare bones of it, quick to get my kind of thought on the whole thing. So yeah, while this is great narration from Silver on what might have been Flint's end, I'm not really going to deep dive into what he's actually saying here, really. So yeah, we just see Thomas in the fields and Flint spots him. Lovely moment and reunion. They embrace in front of everyone in 1720 something. Yeah, can you tell Silver doesn't convince me in the slightest here? And yeah, and Silver says, I'm not the villain you think I am. I'm not him. I think you might be a little bit. And yeah, Maddie works out and points out that he sent his men to investigate all before the Spanish arrived. He planned to betray them all this time. Again, I don't know how reliable this is. Part of me is like, why lie? You know, stupid question when it comes to Silver. But again, I guess another part of me just really wants to believe that he really wasn't playing Flint and Maddie all this time. And it was more a spur of the moment choice. And he's just making it seem more long game because it covers his story better. You know, rather than a last minute kind of, I'm done. But yeah, all genius stuff for this multi-reading ending. You know, either way could be as true as the other. And yeah, Silver drops his, he will wait a day, a month, a year, forever, in the hopes she will understand he did what he did. And emotional, Maddie just tells him to get out. She knows. She knows Maddie isn't stupid. And I kind of wish this was the last we saw of her. In that I wish she kicked him to the curb. And while it wouldn't be quite the operation she had planned, you know, I wish she'd kept some small little rebellion going. Instead, while reluctant, shadows hanging over it, as Flint said there would be, it does seem that, yeah, she stays with Silver and they end up moving to England and she is his wife from Treasure Island. You know, and eventually he gets back in the game anyway. So yeah, Maddie deserved better, I think. So no, history sadly says that this big plan was never going to work at this time. But she still could have helped a lot of people. Alright, so I've gone over what we see on screen. So now it's time to get into what I think about Flint's fate, how I take the ending. So yeah, two things. While I am going to take a little bit more time to dissect all this, I do actually have plans to make this did he, didn't he, its own video where I'm going to spend more time kind of composing counter arguments for both sides, making something a little bit more professional than, you know, my usual flow. So yeah, here today I'm just going to give my reading of that ending, the ending I take it to be. So with that I come to point two. I know ultimately neither side can prove themselves. Both sides know there is always doubt. Creators and actors have deliberately given no canon ending. So while I am quite passionate in my ending, please know and understand, just because I feel deeply about it, I can put a good point across. I know that doesn't mean I'm ultimately correct. So yeah, please understand if our versions of the ending differ. While you'll never talk me round, I do understand that fact. You know, and likewise, don't let me take away your ending just because I have some passionate kind of points to make. Okay, yeah, so as you know, I'm team Silver kills Flint. They're on Skeleton Island, and so to satisfy Maddie, he tells the lie that Flint finally stopped fighting, gave up, and was reunited with Thomas. So yeah, quickly, before even getting into Silver and Flint, and kind of both their conflicting factors that make this ending on screen so hard for me to buy, I argue that Thomas isn't even in the camp. Just to quickly remind you of this scene, what might a Weasley man such as Alfred Hamilton do when faced with Flint's vengeance in the face of death? Sure, could be a plot hole, writers hadn't thought that far ahead yet. Sure, argument could be made that knowing he's going to die, he doesn't tell Flint out of spite, but I think a pathetic man like Alfred, and possibly arguably Peter Ash when faced with his demise, who I think there's also a good chance would be privy to knowing where Thomas is, if they're, I think they would both spill all to Flint in these moments in the hope to save themselves. So yeah, a little bit food for thought in that moment, but Thomas being there or not, is sort of irrelevant in this moment ultimately for me. The bigger question is Flint's fate. So for me, when it comes to Silver and Flint, there is a firm truth for each of them. While I know both these truths do have caveats now and again, when put against each other, like in this scene, I just can't buy it. Because those truths for me is one, Silver is a storyteller, so therefore a completely unreliable narrator, and the other truth is Flint won't stop. Flint won't stop, he won't back down, especially here at this point. He won't back down until he's put down. So, then I'm shown a grayscale-ish kind of toned colour palette, dreamlike clip of Flint being reunited with Thomas, while Silver narrates to us and Maddie how it played out that Flint just had no more fight in him after that monologue. Telling us he was ready to call it a day. And not only did he accept it, perhaps reluctantly at first, but Hans was one of his escorts. Hans, who's been on Flint's arse from the jump because he knows he's relentless, knows he's a weakness to Silver. Also, we don't see Silver in these scenes, who just said to Maddie he was there with him all the way to Savannah. What, he just went all the way with him and then didn't bother seeing him through the gates? But forget that, let's just take what we do see with Flint. Firstly, like I've sort of mentioned already in that first scene, the colouring, the grayscale, we've seen that before. Yes, last episode, where indeed there was more truth to it, I do think. Though again, I'd still argue bias on Silver's kind of point of view, but I still think it's pretty much what we saw is what played out. But then again, we've seen that colouring in Flint's visions of Miranda after her death, in season 3, when she came to visit him when he was drowning, as he sort of referred to it as. Not a reality, it was a dream, a vision, haunting, however each individual interprets it. So when it's presented to us here, there's just very good argument that it just might not necessarily be so. Or why not just show us, after all this time we've spent with Flint, why not give the audience that final piece as a kind of non-narrated scene, real time, normal colour palette? Why leave it in any doubt at all? I know ultimately why, and I'll sum that everything up. But for argument's sake, if true, show it as such. To me, this whole sequence is just full of afterlife symbolism, some of which I don't even think I've caught. I think there's probably more than I've caught. First, back to those picturesque gates, walking through the gate, i.e. the gates of heaven. And so once he's inside the building, while walking inside, what does Flint pass? A clock. A clock, does that clock look familiar to anyone? Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same clock. So yeah, that's Miranda's representation here for me. Her being with him in this moment, I think. Obviously, there's no ambiguity if they show her in person. And yeah, knowing this show has had a lot of Greek mythology symbolism, while I'm sure I haven't caught them all throughout, well, I know I haven't caught them throughout, some obvious ones I know the basic gist of, sing out to me here. So as he passes through, we see 3 women sewing, 3 fates, 3 sisters, the personification of destiny, one spun, one measured, and one cut the thread of life. And then when we see Thomas and the other prisoners, they're harvesting, ploughing in fields, the Elysian fields that could be, the final resting place of the souls of the heroic and the virtuous. And yeah, arguably, Hans being his deliverer here, or maybe represented by Silver back in that ominous boat ride we saw beforehand, being reminiscent of Charon, the ferryman of the dead, whose duty it was to ferry the souls of the departed. Maybe to have Hans possibly represent that here as his kind of deliverer. It's kind of perfect. Again, even if Hans would actually see the order through to deliver Flint, is also in very serious doubt after all we've seen, even if Silver himself does or doesn't kill him. And yeah, while there's always been strong links to religion, to philosophy and mythology in this show, as I've stated before, they can get a bit lost on me, but even I caught those ones in this scene. I'm sure someone on my kind of wave of thinking has probably got or can get even more symbolisms connected to Greek mythology or maybe other kind of mythologies and religion from these kind of scenes, from these visuals. Because yeah, they just scream afterlife to me, they just scream death to me. Then take the fairy tale like moment of Flint and Thomas embracing. While they don't, full blow make out, we're still in 1720 something. While I'd love to think this happened and they lived happily ever after, the whole reason we are where we are essentially is because of homophobia. I can't put it any more delicate than, they're getting a beat down real quick from somewhere for that. It's just all too clean, all too fairy tale for me. And ultimately, this ending, this resignation from Flint would actually undo him a little bit for me. It would undo Silver's development this season especially. If the creators actually came out and said, no, the canon ending is exactly as you see it. Silver's telling the truth. It wouldn't lessen my enjoyment of the show, but I would be disappointed, I think. I would be disappointed in that ending. Not Killing Eve finale disappointed. Fuck me. That was a load of old shit, really, wasn't it? But, God, yeah, that one, goddamn. But it would undo so much inevitable build-up for me. Oh, Flint gave up. And, Silver would have had to have believed that Flint would give up after everything. If so, Flint really reunited with Thomas with no intentions of ever doing anything except live out the rest of his days as a prisoner, ultimately. And yeah, and Silver believed he would be content with that. Yeah, I'd be really disappointed. I'd be disappointed. Again, after that monologue especially. Yeah, not my Flint. So yeah, a couple more quick things that we see in this episode I think is good evidence. I think, yeah, again, as I mentioned it, that first scene of the episode already kind of discussed. Out of time kind of from Silver's telling of Flint's ending and with no narration, but for the reasons I made, its legitimacy, I think it has to be questioned. And yeah, and let's not forget, it's kind of been non-stop since Silver learned of the camp, and especially when Tom Morgan, the man he sent, is there in the scene fighting when the Spanish invade. So, I wonder when that would have happened. And then there's a very short moment, which along with those fundamental Flint and Silver truths, the unreliable narration, the dreamlike ending, is just cherry on the cake for me. So yeah, after Silver does his, we'll sit here as long as it takes speech. What noise might make birds scatter, might make men turn their heads. It's a gunshot. Why show this moment otherwise? I think Flint's maybe rushed Silver in a kind of last-ditch effort. Knock him out, maybe get to Maddie and both of them try and talk him round. But yeah, Silver's anticipated it, has known as much as he'll try and talk him out of it, as much as he doesn't want to kill his friend, it's ultimately got to happen because, again, Flint won't stop, and I think Silver knows that. Again, yeah, this moment, it's been coming for a while. Yeah, so that's kind of the bare bones of it, without taking on too many counterpoints and going too deep into kind of past episodes. Like I say, I do want to take a bit more time out to do that and really provide some evidence. I think that might be fun one day. But yeah, I know with my two Flint and Silver truths, like I said, there are caveats, to Flint won't stop. He's expressed he wants to retire, I know that, live a quiet life away from the sea. He spoke passionately about that to Miranda in 2.9, but then civilization betrayed him a second time, and, when she was also killed in cold blood in that mess, and yeah, that awful trial, and learning Peter Ash had betrayed them all along, so that became the tidal wave it did. And then discovering Maddie and the Maroons, this whole war took on a whole new passion and a means to an end. And I know recently he expressed, Silver and Maddie will be the ones to lead this thing. They're the world in balance. So he made it clear, he still wants to quit when they've reached their end goal in the moment. But that was before he understood that Silver wanted none of it and in fact truly opposes it. And then we come to Silver's truth, an unreliable narrator. Again, I know he's arguably had moments of true sincerity with Maddie and with Flint, but the point has been made, shown far more than not, that ultimately you cannot trust him as narrator, as a truth teller. Last episode being a prime example. Despite all they've been through and all that Flint shared with him, when busted for about to retell the same lies, he won't give Flint any real details on his past, significant or otherwise. And I know there's Treasure Island arguments to be made for both sides. It could be argued, what is to be with Flint's legend doesn't tie up quite so well with my ending. In the book, Flint dies a sloppy, kind of angry drunk. Somehow Billy has got to get the treasure's whereabouts out of him. So, maybe there's good argument. There is a short-lived reunion with Thomas. Maybe Thomas dies. Maybe even more tragic, Thomas was never actually in the camp, but Silver just kind of forced him there anyway. So then maybe Flint escapes, Billy finds him and gets some sort of map out of him in a weakened state, something like that. Kills him once and for all. I think that would make a great Black Sails kind of Treasure Island spin-off to keep things as close to the source material as possible. But I think that betrays Show Flint of everything he was. The same way, to me, him accepting defeat in this moment does. But yeah, whichever side you fall on, a tragic but inevitable kill in the moment, or a peaceful, somewhat happy ending in the moment, retirement for Flint. Because of the book timings, Flint's happiness would be very short-lived, which again is another reason I really do prefer that this being resolved in the now. So yeah, ultimately, the less detailed, but probably still quite long, quick breeze over of it and my thoughts. And while I would love a kind of, yeah, he did kill him confirmation, I actually think this is the perfect ending to such a big part of the show. Jack is actually about to sum it up also well as the already dissected monologue from Flint. People will make up their own conclusions if a truth cannot be proven, just like I have here. I mean, they do it when it can be proven as well. I've come back to this book, a few times in these rundowns, well known to contain inaccuracies, guff, many things stated with no sources, no proof. So yeah, that is the book that started the legends. We're going to see in a moment, the show acknowledging it as well. But yeah, where does fact and fiction end in here in this book? Maybe Blackbeard did light his beard on fire to intimidate foes. Maybe he didn't. Maybe Anne Bonny and Mary Read did cross-dress to confuse foes. Maybe there was something even deeper in there for one or both of them that no one had the words for in 18th century. Or maybe it's just as simple as they just like to dress comfortably, while on the seas and mucking out with the guys, and it's been misunderstood and made into something it just wasn't. Maybe they did pop a boob out to distract enemies, or maybe that was added for spice, or maybe even to play down, they were giving it just as good as the guys. Of course, being a big in-show Anne fan, I've since seeked out information about the real woman, and yet while there's lots of information accumulated over the years since, the actual sources, the real documents, are much more scarce, and yet, and what is often presented has to be taken with a pinch of salt. So yeah, sort of in bringing it all together, in giving us such an ambiguous, up for interpretation ending for such a larger-than-life character like Flint in a show like this, it's ultimately brilliant. Just like with so much of the pirates' history in this period, it's ultimately up to the individual to make what you want of it. I choose to believe that the real Anne Bonny was fearless like the shows, causing as much chaos as the men, but I do it with the knowledge I'll never know the real truth. And if I did, it may not be half as interesting, or it may not be what I like. So yeah, whatever you believe Flint's ultimate ending to be, they're your conclusions based on your beliefs, based on your takes on the show, the characters you've taken them to be, your level of reliability on presented evidence. So yeah, don't let me or anyone else tell you otherwise. the ending you take away. The lessons are there to be taken, but due to life and circumstances, we might not all take them in exactly the same way. Even with written, proven truths, in this case visual, the legends and the stories take on their own momentum and interpretations until what was once the truth has been long lost, never to truly be known, which is one of, if not the big lesson I take away from this show, and why this ambiguity is ultimately just the perfect ending for a show like this, and why it just ranks up there as just one of the best shows for me. So yeah, I hope that's enough to satisfy for now. It probably ended up being a lot longer than I wanted it to be. But yeah, I hope that satisfies in terms of my thoughts of Flint's conclusion. So yeah, let's finally just move on to that great final sum up from Jack, where he really is going to echo a lot of my final conclusions in terms of Flint and the show, you know, how a story kind of progresses down from teller to teller. And yeah, this scene, like I've said, really does serve as a great epilogue. It's almost, like a wink to the audience, a bit of a fourth wall break. So yeah, let's quickly go over it. A story is true, a story is untrue. As time extends, it matters less and less. The stories we want to believe, those are the ones that survive. Those are the stories that shape history, so what does it matter how it was born? Yeah, just such powerful dialogue as we return to Nassau, which is just bittersweet, lovely to see in the final kind of moments. And yeah, Jack is in the tavern, started as Eleanor's tavern, then it was Max, kind of Woods Rogers, just so much has gone down here. And yeah, Jack is chattering away to a slightly odd looking fella. Thankfully I'd done a small bit of research after falling hook, line and sinker for Anne Bonny, so I worked out that this was Mary Reed. I'm going to refer to her as Mary. I love all the women clocker, but Jack's absolutely clueless. And yeah, Max and Mapleton are having a giggle at Jack's expense on the balcony. And obviously when we get to Anne, she clocks her straight away. But yeah, Jack looks quite deep in his cups, you know, by the looks of it here. A small sign of what would be to come, as real Rackham is said to have been a little bit of a drinker, part of why he's regarded as a bit of a joke in the history books. So yeah, after his great opening lines and he's kind of waffling away, he sort of says, as this relates to your question specifically, remind me, what was your question specifically? And yeah, she wanted to know about Silver, and he's clearly been going over things that have gone down, and she's been clearly taking in every word eagerly. Please forgive me, I will go on from time to time, but generally in the service of thoroughness and always with the best intentions. Oh, I love you, Jack. I'm going to miss you. I'm excited to start all again and go again, but yeah. And I love that Parsons' farewell can be heard in the background. As I said before, my favourite piece of music from the show. We heard it in the tavern right in the first episode as well, all the way back then. And yeah, so Jack kind of sums up Long John Silver to her. I won't go through it all word by word, but we get some, you know, really great kind of final catch-ups as he's telling it. We sort of see it on screen. We see Billy kind of washes up on shore, presumably Skeleton Island still, as Jack's talking about people kind of destroyed by it, and those who stood to benefit most from it were the most eager to leave it all behind, he says, as we see Silver himself, and to my frustrations, Maddie join him. But you know, it's clear to see there's a big distance between them now, in her case especially. And yeah, a lovely sweeping shot from the same area that Flint trained Silver in last episode in those flashbacks. Jack continues, until all that remains of any of it are the stories bearing only a passing resemblance to the world the rest of us lived in. A world we survived, he says. As Mrs. Hudson, obviously finally reunited with her kids, of course, as most will know, the real-life children of her and Toby Stevens. And yeah, what book is she reading them? It's that book. But of course, we'll pretend that we don't know that Jack's fate, his final fate, is written in said book. But yeah, a world that is no more, Jack says sadly once we come back to the present. And yeah, Mary questions that she hears otherwise. And Jack talks about kind of who's in charge of Nassau, and the camera pans to Featherstone and Adele. Yeah, great choice, Max. Of course, first instinct is Featherstone, but it's perfect. He's loyal, he respects Max, huge trust between them. Adele now by his side, possibly married now. But yeah, as Jack points out, the true power here is a bit more complicated than that. And that's when we pan to Max. I love their little look to each other. They're friends now, I think, I like to think. So yeah, to answer her question, Jack basically says no, but kind of yeah. They have to be much more sly about it, but it's clear they still have the same sort of game going. They're all just much better players at it now. And yeah, like I say, it's got to be much more subtle. Jack says to Mary, follow me. And yeah, before I bring it to an end, let's give Jack a final MVP shout for coming in clutch at the right moment on Skeleton Island, for defeating and taking down Woodes Rogers in his own way, and for being, although arguably also unreliable for exaggeration and drink, interesting narrator in these scenes nevertheless. And so yeah, our last ever scene of Black Sails, and the fact that it's Jack and Anne is just perfect to me. Just perfect. As I say, Anne, she's better. She's looking better. She's healed, I'm very confident she can wield her swords again. She clocks Mary straight away, like I say, and Mary knows she's been clocked as well, I think. And yeah, I love Anne's expression, and that she doesn't say anything in the moment, but she just looks to Jack kind of like, really? You could be more welcoming to new people. It wouldn't hurt, Jack says to Anne once Mary heads off. Oh man, so funny. And Anne points out, are you going to let everyone that asks join our crew? Of course, yeah, legacy of Flint and his treasure, as it's now known, has spread far and wide, so they're certainly not struggling for crew right now. She questions if he'll be persuaded to chase it again, but Jack's kind of learnt his lesson by the sounds of it. He's chased the treasure. He's had that treasure in his hands. He sort of says, let's just do this for a little while longer. And while maybe their ship's a little bit busier than she'd like, I'm glad here in Black Sails, Anne and Jack get to sail and pirate together as she wanted as well. She can check in with Max whenever they port in Nassau, while Jack still gets to be known and admired and, gets to tell his stories like we saw him here with Mary. We'll pretend it's years, not months, which is the real reality, until it would all come crashing down. And yeah, so they go to check out Jack's finished flag. Of course, seen it many times used in my intro, this little scene. The skull and the double swords, often said to be the real Jack Rackham's flag, but it never appeared in print anywhere until the 1950s. More myths, stories and legends. But yeah, true to life or not, Jack isn't too impressed. Maybe your last artist might have come up with something better in the end, Anne. But yeah, after Anne asks what was wrong with the one we had, Jack answers, because what's it all for if it goes unremembered? It's the art that leaves the mark. To leave it, it must transcend. Speak for itself. It must be true. And after a disappointed pause as he sees it for the first time, he says, it's fine. A couple of times, and he heads off with his Jolly Roger, finally being revealed to us. Yeah, a meta sort of fourth wall break here on the ending, on the show as a whole, maybe in that whole speech. And yeah, it's Anne Bonny who gives the order, get us underway, which yeah, is just perfect for her. I love she gets the last word, and I love she's possibly quartermaster here. Either way, from being rejected back in season 2 by the men to giving orders to what will be some of the same men here, it's just perfect. And yeah, so ends my favourite show and my last ever deep dive. And yeah, just absolutely phenomenal show. Absolutely brilliant. I don't even have the words anymore. I think you probably gathered just from all the talking I've done these last 9 maybe months, 10 months, how much I love this show. And yeah, it's loved by so many. There's just so much to take from this show, that even doing this, I don't even know if I've covered half of it, but I've done my best. But yeah, with that said, let's do our final MVP award and then take one final look at those MVP counts.
Last item.
Okay, so final MVP award. It's between our 3 OG boys, Flint, Jack and Silver. It's a great episode for Jack. He comes in clutch just when they need him most. He gets to take down Woodes Rogers in just the best way, so true to him. He's back on the account by the end, sailing with Anne, and people just basking in his glory. But yeah, this final win falls down to Silver and Flint for me. Yeah, moving Flint stuff. What a character. And yeah, I kind of hate that this has to be done, But this final one for me, this has to go for Silver, for Long John Silver. Regardless of how he ultimately did it, he tamed Flint one way or the other. He unmade him. While Silver is a character I struggle with the most, I think I've struggled with the most to kind of dissect, because like I've said, it's just so hard to know when a truth is coming from him. He's just a man just full of contradictions. You know, one episode I think I've got him sussed, and then the next, you know, he'll kind of do a 180 and he'll surprise me, good or bad. Some things I understand, some things I can still not make sense of. Here, like I said in this episode, I agree with some of his points, and I do understand why he kind of takes the route he takes, but I so disagree with a lot of his actions. A well thought out long-term cunning deception to both partners, or a spur of the moment final desperate action for, in his eyes, the greater good. Treasure Island has me thinking the former, but the show I have just completed once more has me torn in the middle once more. But yeah, either way, this season the narrative shift has been done so well, and yeah, like it or not, the final word has to fall to Long John Silver here. I think he's got to take the MVP win for this one, and so bring him up to 4 wins finally. So yeah, let's take one last look and let's award the winner and see where everybody fares. And so we have our honourable mentions at 1 star. Everyone that picked up 1, some really great names here. Maddie, I'm gutted she only got 1. I really would have liked her to at least grab 1 more. While she had some great stuff in season 4, she was overshadowed a little bit. They were small and sweet kind of little moments. But she's on there, so that's one good thing, I suppose. So yeah, let's move on to, I suppose, not quite 3rd place, but just before that, and our 2 stars, our 2-star MVP stand-ins. Yeah, 3 characters who just did that little bit more and deserved that extra kind of nod. Billy Bones, Eleanor, and of course Edward Teach, Blackbeard. All great characters. I think Teach did really well to pick up a couple, considering a bit like Maddie, he was a big player, but he was kind of showed up quite sporadically and could be overshadowed sometimes with bigger things going on. 2, it's about right, I think, for me and Eleanor. And Billy also, yeah, it's about right. He was up a few more times, at least half a dozen times. But yeah, he just missed out a few times there. And obviously come season 4, that's when his opportunities ended for any further. All 3 of them just really great characters with great arcs. And then so in 3rd place, sort of standing on her own, is Max. Which, yeah, 3 stars. I'm glad I was able to just give her that little bit more credit. You know, 3's pretty good standing for Max, because she's also she does great things, but she does get overshadowed a lot. And obviously, yeah, she's a character that some of us love, some of us don't. You know, some aren't so sure. I love her, which has obviously been very clearly kind of established. And so 2nd place is going to be, I don't know if this is controversial or whatever, but it's got to be shared, because that's just the way it all worked out, between 4 people. So yeah, 4 stars apiece for Jack, Anne, Silver, and Vane. Yeah, absolutely. All 4 of these guys, great characters, just had some phenomenal moments that absolutely had to be rewarded. Sometimes it was fighting and, you know, bravery that way. Sometimes it was standing up against what's right. Sometimes doing what's wrong and just being a general badass. Sometimes absolutely being hilarious and stealing the show that way. And just using wits. And I'm surprised in Silver. I thought Silver was going to be neck and neck with the winner. Who, I mean, you know who it is. But I thought that was going to end up being a little bit more of a closer contest than it ended up being. So much more going on in the episodes and just people that I kind of picked over him a lot. But yeah, I think 4 apiece for these guys is about right. Good going for Vane, considering we haven't had him for 11 episodes. And it sort of works out about average 1 a season for Jack and Anne and Silver as well. But yeah, I think that's probably worked out quite well. There's argument you could say, well, you've got 4 in 2nd place. Pick someone to take that 2nd spot, but I don't think you'd really need me to make a big meal out of that one. So you can take that as my 2nd if you want. Take her as my 2nd. But I'm going to keep it. I think that works. That's what the numbers ended up being. So that's what the numbers are. But of course, our winner, if there was any doubt when I started, I don't think there was. It is, of course, Captain Flint, aka James McGraw. Just, what can be said? Just a phenomenal character. And yeah, just so many episodes of just absolute dominance and just badassery against the odds. Navigation, coming from nothing to being top of the game again, just absolutely turning the situation around. Phenomenal to watch. He was always going to win, to do it fairly and to do it rightly. So yeah, that's the MVPs. I've had real fun doing this kind of fun little mini game as I go along, you know, doing this, naming the episodes, rating the episodes. It just spices each one up for me as well. I do enjoy doing it. Marking those who just stood out each time that little bit more above the others in the episode. Sometimes a near impossible choice. A few obvious choices before we even got to the episode in question. A few lucky pulls for some in quieter episodes. One or two controversial. Yes, Miranda should have probably got 2-9, not Anne. I know. I had to get one Anne just because in there. But yeah, with that being said, with that MVP done, I thought it would be fun just to go over my 15 favourite characters very, very quickly without going into it all deeply, compared to what my top 10 was when I'd first finished the show the first time around, you know, way back a couple of years ago in my reactions. I thought that would be interesting because there's been some change. There's only 2 that are still the same, in the same position. So these are my top 10 that I did straight on the aftermath of that finale, on a first watch, you know, just experiencing those great storylines and those great character arcs for the first time. But yeah, so that's what I had there. But yeah, let's now check out, I've expanded it to a top 15 because there were 5 characters that I just couldn't not mention. I was gutted the first time around that Maddie and Miranda had to not be involved. But yeah, let's take a look now. Hans loses his top 10 place. He does drop a couple. There is just storylines and characters whose arcs I just think are a bit stronger, appreciate a little bit more, and but I enjoy Hans so much, you know, so much so that he does just about get a place above Miranda. And yeah, maybe some surprise that I've got Woods Rogers in my top 15 considering how much I rage on the man. But yeah, what an arc, what a great villain, fantastic character, even though I don't really like him. And I thought I was going to put Thomas and Miranda together so then I could do Adele and Featherstone, who I am a little bit gutted I did have to miss out. But yeah, I think they deserve to be their own people, you know, their own places on this chart, especially Miranda. So, alright, let's get in and see how much that top 10 has changed. So let's do 10 to 6. So yeah, Maddie, she works out as a new entry. In the top 10, essentially. She wasn't placed before. So she does take Hans' kind of spot in the top 10. A great character. Billy, he's got a little upgrade. I've put Billy up to 9. Because obviously, again, bear in mind, when I first did this, I was fresh off watching, obviously, season 4. And I'd forgotten a lot of earlier stuff. So Billy, yeah, I think he's worthy of putting a little bit higher. Those first 3 seasons. And so, more by default than anything, Hans does have to drop a place. Eleanor's arc is the stronger. I just really enjoyed deep diving Eleanor this time around, and I've really seen a lot of kind of new sides to her that I really enjoy. If they had about the same screen time, it probably still would be Teach just ahead by a nudge. But yeah, I've got to give Eleanor the little bit of the upgrade, a nice little jump 2 places up to 7th. And yeah, surprisingly for some, I imagine in 6 is a bit of a drop for Silver. It's a drop. He was in 3rd for me the first time round. It's a great arc, it's fantastic arc, one of the best. But yeah, multiple watches later, and I don't dislike him, but I don't love him. I don't come off him quite as strong now seeing that arc, knowing those turns and stuff. He can never really be trusted. He has some badass moments. He has some vulnerable moments. He has some great moments. But yeah, there are just 5 characters that I just like more than him. So yeah, let's get into that top 5. So yeah, Vane is going to get an upgrade. I do enjoy Vane that little bit more than Silver. I have decided multiple watch-throughs later. Vane is brilliant. I think I forgot the first time round again. He hadn't been in it for 11 episodes, and he kind of shifted my mind. Otherwise, he probably would have still been in this same place. But yeah, I love Vane's arc. You know, I love the way his story ends. Well, I don't love it, but you know what I mean. He starts off a bit rocky. It takes him a little while with some people. It takes him got to get over that awful Max stuff first. But then come the end of season 1, you know, and into season 2 and obviously 3, yeah, he's a brilliant character. So 4 and 3, I swear to God, was so hard, and I switched them around so many times. So yeah, this is one of those, come to me next week and I might have them switched again. It's a toss of a coin on any given day, because I love them both pretty much equally. Jack just nudges it, just kind of more maybe for the comedy, but I fucking adore Max. I adore her. My 1 and 2 are the same. No, that hasn't changed. Yeah, Flint might not be my favourite character, but he is one of the best characters in TV ever. But yeah, my favourite, it hasn't changed from the minute I saw her. Oh shit. She looks fucking...
Zoom, just one look, and then my heart went boom.
God. And it's okay. It's okay. Oh God, my girl's gone mad. My girl's doing the madness. It's alright. I still love you, Anne, but fuck. Oh, that's my girl. Go on. Come on, Anne. Come on. Oh! So fucking... Go on, Anne. Come on. Oh my fucking God, I love this woman. Oh my God. Anne! I love Anne. What can I say? I don't even... Yeah, it's not even, like, bit ridiculous now, but I do love my Anne Bonny. So, yeah, that is my top 15 characters. So, yeah, let me know, you know, like, your top 5, your top 10s, you know, who really makes the show for you. But, yeah, that's ultimately the top 15. Yeah, I think that's it. I've got to end it here because it's just going on and people won't have an hour and 40 minutes to spare, I don't believe. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, thank you so much for watching, for taking time out to watch, to like, to comment. It means a lot. This really has been a nice little side kind of hobby to do. Just keep the mind busy. And yeah, just something to fill, you know, a couple of days a week with here and there. But while I'm kind of watching along the show, and now I kind of have to find another project to kind of sink my teeth into. But yeah, I've had a great time doing these. For anyone that's kind of enjoyed this, you know, and is into maybe reactions and other shows and stuff, I think my next project, I think I might react to the show Interview with the Vampire. I might do reactions for that if that appeals to anyone, and you know, might want to stick a subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, yeah, I will mostly probably chat to people in the Facebook group, the Black Cells group. And like I say, there will be a couple more little one-offs I've got planned, maybe something around Christmas, and yeah, you know, 1 or 2 little things. But this is for the most part it. But yeah, the Bonny Rackham is certainly going to rest for a little while, you know, get some good careening done. And yeah, and the captain's going to venture on shore and do something else for a little while. But yeah, thank you again, guys. Take care. All the best. And yeah, I'll hopefully chat to some of you again soon in the group and wherever else. But yeah, take care, everybody. Thank you so much. And I will catch you on the flip side. Peace out. Bye.